I like how Gil's 82, but he knows how to photobomb.
He's Robbie's sidekick.
Robbie's sidekick today.
So we'll just give it maybe a couple of minutes, Arman.
Okay.
It thinks Don's talking when I'm talking.
So kill mine?
Kill what? Kill your microphone.
Oh, I did that.
It's got to leave. Now it's better. That's okay. I'll watch with you over there.
Okay.
Keep it easy on the host.
So, David, can you hear me good?
I think he's muted.
David, you can hear me, right?
Oh.
Yep.
Oh.
Okay. So the guy who pulled blood for me, Armin, the first thing he goes like, "Oh boy, you're getting a lot of stuff done."
Yeah. Yeah. Was it 4 or 5 vials or?
5 vials.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5.
I've had a few people get more than that, so it just depends on the, what we're doing. So
I'm hoping that I would get some good ones.
so we'll go find out. So it doesn't really matter. So
Then you're talking like Gil now. So
This is what I love about Armin when we're waiting. Hey, Armin, I'm not going to photobomb too much, but should I be eating bananas or not?
well, it kind of depends on what your strategy is. So,
Hey, Terrence, good afternoon.
natural food's always a good one, no matter what you're doing. But depending on what your goal is, and then what you're dealing with health wise, there's certain things you want to know. So
okay. So let's do something, Armin. Why don't you just get your deck ready or slides ready, and then we'll talk to it. We'll make it more of a conversation
Sure.
as well. I think that'll kind of give folks a little bit of a viewpoint, and what you're saying. Kind of ask questions, make it a little bit more interactive. I know that there's some things that you particularly wanted to go through just to kind of make sure that people are thinking about it. Rather than your traditional, I'm going to get a blood test and see what my doctor says kind of a thing, right? So
you're going to get some good takeaways, in my opinion. So
right.
We'll just play that as it comes through.
Right.
So.
Okay. So I think we'll get started. I think one thing I want to kind of do is at least make sure that people have enough time. So I think all of you guys know me. I'm Ravi Valenki. I am a executive consultant for Elevate Shift. Part of my role is to kind of help organizations be more efficient, effective, and kind of go through execution for their strategy perspective. So Armin, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I'm pretty sure you're going to do a much, much, much better job than I can do in what you do. But one thing that'll be good for people to hear is why should people care about wellness and longevity at this point rather than just wait for until you turn 50 or 60 or 70, right? I think like what's the relevance and importance from a timing perspective? I think that'll be good for people to hear,
Okay. All right. So my background, I'm 61 years old. I've been involved with fitness, exercise, nutrition, and all that for the past 40 years. And I've learned a lot of things, mostly the hard way. So it's been productive for me. I'm a certified longevity coach, personal trainer, wellness consultant for companies, and also IFBB pro bodybuilder. So I've learned how to do extreme things to get quick results and things like that. Now I've moved into more of the longevity circle because, as you get older, things aren't clicking the way they used to. And so what can you do about it? And so that's, kind of segues into why I think people should get on these longevity strategies earlier than wait, in the sense that if you can slow down aging with some of these strategies, you're going to slow down disease. And if you slow down disease, you're going to get a lot more mileage out of your health span. So longevity is also about living longer, but it's also health span as far as living better for a lot longer period of time. So that's the big takeaway that people should look for, because if you're doing well financially and you got a great family and things are going well, I think you'd want to make that last as long as possible. So
Right,
I
right.
mean, I'm in the same bucket as everybody else. I'm trying to do that for myself and my family. So from that perspective.
So Arman, I think when you look at so no no that's a great preview, right? I think so. Is there a difference in how people should think about from a personal perspective versus how they would look at it from a professional, if you're a business owner or if you actually work in an organization?
Yeah, so from a personal perspective, you want to think about what's important to you going forward. Do you want to get yourself in a situation where your health is not performing well or you're not very mobile? If you look
Right.
around at a lot of 50 and 60-year-olds, they're not moving around very well. Their health isn't good. They're on a lot of prescriptions. And where's that going to lead them to? So from a personal perspective, if you want to be there for your family and not have to be a burden on them, this is a great step to take. Now, you can do
Right.
other things on the insurance side to financially help out, but at the end of the day, this is going to allow them to enjoy you a lot longer because you're around and you're mobile. You can share things with grandchildren. You've got a lot of capacity. So that's, just one of the many things.
Okay. So, oh, by the way, I don't see yours. If you're sharing anything, Armin, just to let you know. So,
Yeah. So let me pop that up real quick.
yeah. I mean, as you're kind of bringing it up, I mean, I think when you and I talked about, and by the way, I kind of, I think I was kind of laughing because I think it's an old marketing ad, like, hey, I'm not only the president, but I'm also the client kind of perspective. So that's kind of what reminded when I started talking to you, because Armin is my I guess my coach as well when I started talking to him about this session. So that's what I remember. But you kept talking about the four pillars always, right? There's four ways of looking at those things. Like, I think it'll be kind of good for people to kind of go through that as well, to kind of see what your definition of four pillars are as we look at this longevity and well-being.
Okay, so let me just kind of move to there's our introductions, and then we talked about the importance of longevity.
Yeah.
Let's get into this area here.
Right.
To do anything, you've got to have a strategy, and that's what these pillars are on. This is not an exhaustive list. It's just what I've found so far that's been very productive for the things I'm doing for myself and my clients, and also learning about all these things that are coming forth, because there's a lot of great technology that's happening, and AI is going to speed all this up. So it's really good news for people who want to live a longer, healthier life, but you got to have a strategy. And so this is where I'm at right now with it.
So so when you look at the four pillars, are there other things that we're missing that we weren't thinking about, when we look at these items on the pillars?
Well, I think right now it's pretty comprehensive, but yeah, there can always be other things, because there's
Right.
a lot of there's things coming where genetically, you can do things with CRISPR and other. These aren't actually usable just yet, but they're being researched where you edit your genes, and CRISPR is
Right.
one of the components of that. I don't have that in here. I think that's going to be. It's not here yet, so I'm not going to get into it. But you can always look it up.
Right.
It's
I mean,
just one of many.
right. I mean, I know we're probably going to get into a few of these anyway. So, one of the things that caught my eye was the DNA testing. Like, what's particularly what's critical about DNA testing, and why would people do that from a general longevity or a wellness perspective?
Well, the advantage of DNA testing is you can see what genetic mutations you inherited from your parents. And what they've been able to do now is look at those mutations and help determine what raw materials, what nutrients your body needs to function at a very high level. And
Right.
also what genes you may have, for example, Alzheimer's or other inherited genes that you need to get on your radar if you want to get on the offensive. Because my dad had Alzheimer's. Now I haven't got the Alzheimer's gene test done, but that's on my radar to have done. But if that's the case, there are things you can do on the offense to help reduce that inflammation marker as well. So the DNA testing, there's two components. You have a full DNA test, and those are expensive. From my point of view, they're $1,300 for a full DNA test. Now, the
Right.
beauty of a full DNA test is, it's one time. Once you have it, that genetic code isn't changing.
Right.
So if you want to start with something simpler, you can do a DNA methylation test. And what that does is it tells you, how your body does it, treats inflammation, detoxification, your neurotransmitters, your nutrition. So it also gives you the markers of what raw materials your body needs to function at a very high level. So from a nutrient standpoint, that's what the benefits of it are. You're going to know what supplements do you really need to take because now you know, and then what food sources are the best for you. And there's a lot of moving parts to that,
Right.
especially when it comes to MTHFR gene or COMT gene, which affect how you absorb nutrients as well. And I don't think we want to get into over depth on that, but just as an example.
So what I'm hearing is that, and then we can actually open it up to questions with people, right, if they have any questions. But what I'm hearing is that we're not looking at your traditional test that you would normally do in your doctor's office, right? I mean, you're kind of going a little bit more involved in, let's find out the root cause and what really happens from a physiological perspective before we do anything in terms of medication. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, now there are some medical professionals that are getting more extensive, but your
Right.
typical doctor, based on insurance and what their medical group will allow, will limit what tests you can have done. And also it's limited by the insurance. So if you want to get a broad spectrum understanding and baseline of where you are physically, then yeah,
Right.
you need a lot more lab testing to do that. So that means testing all your hormones. That means testing your inflammation markers. That means testing your iron levels. That means testing your fasting insulin and your peptide C for insulin, because that's an important marker. But people don't know anything about this. It's not discussed with your doctor. They're not doing these types of tests. So
Right.
the
Right.
more expansive you can make your lab work, then you will look what's not in optimal range is your focus,
Right.
and then based
Understood.
on what you see.
Right.
So
Now I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna see if anybody has questions. Because I know you and I will keep talking forever. So I just want to open up the floor if any questions, concerns.
I, I'm afraid that my mic will reverberate. Can
You can come here and talk.
people hear me right?
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just talk from here.
Yeah.
Armin, thanks for doing what you're doing today, and thank you, Robbie, for hosting this. Um, I've learned that, and back to the insurance won't allow the doctors to do the proper testing on lab results. I've heard that the insurance companies only allow 5 biomarkers, and that's a very low number compared to what we're supposed to be having done. Can you help expand biomarkers for me?
well, yeah. So what you're going to get with a typical lab work at a medical office and then the insurance approved is going to be a metabolic panel, glucose and things like that, a CBC, a cell blood count. So you're going to check liver function, kidney function, and electrolytes, anything that's allergy related. And then if they're kind of cutting edge, they'll check an A1C. They're going to check maybe your PSA. So yeah, it's not a very, it's usually about 2 pages, sometimes 3 of basic lab work, and it gives you a snapshot about those particular tests. But what also has to happen, no matter what, is there needs to be a corrective protocol for what's out of sync and what is the optimal range. And the doctors, they just look at the range. They don't talk about the optimal range. So that's what gets left out. And it's based on what they're required to do from the medical group that they work with. They have these standards because they don't want anybody getting outside their box. And it's unfortunate because a lot of these doctors do want to do more. That's my perspective on it. I don't know, does that help answer your question or?
It does. I mean, I've learned that basically not to accept what the insurance company is feeding us and to use cash and spend maybe up to $500 for your own lab results. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah,
It does to me.
yeah. Here's the deal. Okay, you can ask for example. Let's use the example of Cigna. Cigna is actually a little bit more forward thinking, but you have to call them and you have to show them the exact lab panel you want to request, And then you can get approval, but it's going to take you a little work and time. And they do it once a year max. So you can go through the hassle of that, or you can pay out of cash, pay with cash and just get it done and get your results back. Because once the results are done, they're good with any medical team. You're not restricted to who you're going to show them to, and they're yours.
Right.
So you can show your
Well,
doctor, you can show it to anybody.
and even Cigna, Armin, I think when I called in, they do accept it, but they will charge you for it. I mean, some of them, what I've heard, and this is probably probably a new development with insurance companies, they are increasingly not opting for preventive kind of tests. Usually doctors want to do some kind of preventive test to see, okay, how prone are you to develop a certain type of a, issue in your body, but they're increasingly going away from that. So which means that you have to ask for it and pay for it rather than the doctor prescribing for it.
Well, one other thing that also comes up though is if they're not familiar with how to do corrective protocols for that test, they don't want to go down that path.
Right.
Right. So that's the other thing that will come up when you're trying to get more extensive lab work.
Right. No, understood. So, so what I'm hearing is that it's usually a mindset shift for not just us, but also who we work with, I guess, right? So, um, I think we were brought up with an idea that we just go to a doctor and get everything understood or given to us in terms of what's wrong with us. But what you're saying is that we are equally responsible for making sure that before you go to a doctor, that we do our part in terms of how we keep ourselves healthy and well, right? So, like what's your point of view on like, I mean, you've done it for a while, right? I mean, just
Yeah, I've
looking
been
at
at
you
it a
like,
while. Well, first and foremost, you have to be your own advocate. Okay. You've got to take care of yourself because if you're relying on the medical community, I think
right,
we see where that's going. It's not going real well. Okay. So you've got to get on the offense. You've got to learn about things. But now there's more data. There's more people that help with this. So it's not as bad as it used to be. Typically you're at the mercy of the doctor because you couldn't even look anything up. Well, now you have AI, you've got other components. You can look things up and call people out on it, and you can know as much as your doctor on a lot of topics, and they don't like it.
right.
That has been all this time, but you got to take care of you. So if you have aches and pains and things that they can't solve, you got to do your own. And I have to do this with clients too, is, we got to do some digging. We got to see, well, what other things are going on here? But that's where your DNA testing and your lab work can help get answers a lot quicker because you see what's not at optimal levels.
So what you're saying is a mindset shift is, it's like, how would you describe a shift? Like what areas are we focusing on when you say mindset?
So you've got to realize, all right, if I'm going to make these changes, there's going to be some roadblocks. Okay, so what's your strategy to overcome these roadblocks? How do you want to deal with the lifestyle changes? Because a lot of them are lifestyle changes.
Oh, lifestyle. Okay.
You're not going to be eating. You got to reduce processed food. You got to get rid of fast food because of that's a toxic food system, and it's proven. I mean, it's out there, and people are sick. Okay, because of seed oils, because of too much sugar, too many carbohydrates, and elevated insulin. And insulin's a huge problem in our society because people eat way too many carbohydrates. They don't understand how insulin works. It's also inflammatory for your body. The medical community ignores nutrition and supplements. They make fun of the supplement industry because they haven't done any homework on it. So now there are exceptions, and so if you find the right doctor that's knowledgeable on that, then I'm all for it. But you've got to figure out, okay, how am I going to go about doing this, and then how do I measure my results and if I'm making progress. So that mind shift has to be, getting around the different roadblocks, which kind of you're doing already, as you found out through lab work, just for one step, let alone exercise, your sleep, how you maximize your recovery, just everyday life.
Okay. Don, you had a question?
Go ahead, Gil.
Yeah, Arman, I just really admire what you've accomplished at age 51 and the knowledge you're sharing with us a little bit. I just want to know what you have learned or you're aware of what Robert Kennedy is doing and assembling some of the top listed. There is a list of the most brilliant chemists in the world, and he has taken on one young fellow that's in his early 40s as a PhD in chemist of all this nutrition.
Mhm.
What he's going to do to our food. I think what I learned from my visit with a relative of this famous chemist that the tomatoes and carrots and potatoes are so treated and raised with so much chemical,
Chemicals,
yeah,
fertilizers.
chemicals, yeah, and that they are the highest. So I've taken those out of my diet. And my wife has her master's in nutrition and as the core paper, she was a participant in the core paper for parental and enteral tube feeding for neonatology building and children that are born and you can hold them in one hand. I mean, they only weigh a pound or two. So fatal to thrive. So it's a core paper that every neonatologist in the nation, if not the world, has to read that CDC paper. So she's great to have at home. But I think Robert F. Kennedy is going to change our food minutes. What is your opinion or your perspective on the change our food system change
Well,
for us?
A couple things. I'm just so you know, I'm 61. I'm not 51. So just
Oh, okay.
just make sure I got that.
He'll probably take 51, but.
Okay. I'm all for Robert F. Kennedy, and yes, he's moving in the right direction because what the big takeaway on Robert Kennedy is all this stuff that's going on affects the children first and foremost. So anybody that has children are going to be dealing with these headaches because of these dyes. They're getting rid of the red dye, but they takes them 2 years now to get that out of the food system, which is ridiculous. Now they're moving on to the yellow dye, which is made from tar. Okay. And why is it in there? Because they want Fruit Loops to be nice and colorful. They don't want to use beetroot or something more natural. So, but he has to take on big food and big pharma, and it's not going to be an easy task. You got to do little things at a time. I'm all for it. I think people should be very supportive and backing of what he's trying to accomplish. To me, it's a ray of hope because things that just have not been going in the right direction. The amount of chemicals in our food system is outrageous, and unfortunately, it's toxic. And this glyphosate, which is what you're talking about with your food sources, they spray this glyphosate, which what's the name of the pesticide? Anyway, so
Yeah, pesticides.
yeah. So what happens with glyphosate, it actually imitates estrogen in your body, so it affects men and females the wrong way. But then the argument is, well, it's not a big enough amount and this and that, but your body builds this stuff up. So you always got arguments because you got the people who sell glyphosate, big ag, and then you got the people who are dealing with it. So yeah, it's not an easy task, but at least he's willing to spearhead it and make changes. Nothing was getting done before. So I'm all for it.
Don?
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Armin. So, one, I was taught by a mentor, and the legislation is really slow to adapt. So RFK Jr. is doing nothing. He's doing a lot more, but he's baselining off the Affordable Care Act and some of the changes that were put in there to help turn this cruise ship. Like you said, it's going to take a long time. That same mentor, I was with him for 8 years. And we also had lunch one day. And as we go back to mindset and behavior change, he looked at me and said something very profound that I'd like you to address. He looked at me and he said, I think we all know what to do. We just don't do it. So if you educate us and we become a better consumer, what's going to help make us do it?
That's a good question. It's a very good question,
Yeah.
Don.
It's
Apply. It's apply. How do
an
you make this apply? Yeah.
It's an excellent point. So yeah, I think people know what to do, but you have to change your environment on that too. If you're going to, go to parties and go to eating events and you're going to have all the stuff that's there that's, not what you need to be having, you've got to decide, okay, how am I going to deal with this? And that's what I coach my clients on is understanding, how you're going to eat in an environment where you need to be eating certain foods versus what's provided. Because we have so much processed food and so much fast food, and everybody thinks there's nothing wrong with it, and which is ironic. But yeah, people kind of know what to do, but they're not really sure what to do, and they're really, when it comes to putting together, their own strategy, they don't want to go through the headache sometimes of trying to figure it out. So the thing is yes, you can just go with all natural, preferably organic. Now, when I talk about organic food, I'm talking about things that have a soft tissue to them, potatoes, berries and things like that. We're not talking about, you don't need to buy an organic coconut. You don't need to buy an organic watermelon and lemon. It's got a massive cover on it. So that's not going to be a problem. But anything has a soft cover, you want to buy organic. And I really emphasize organic meats. Organic meats last at least 10 days in the fridge. You take regular meat and you put it in the fridge, it's good for 3 days and it turns rancid. So there's a first clue there. But there's a cost involved. Now,
Yeah.
one thing is, even though it's more expensive, it lasts longer. So you're going to probably eat all of it and typically will be less waste, but you have to make those decisions.
I think the $500,000 worth of medical claims cost more actually than the product.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, you've given us the right track. I know that I'm doing that. Lord willing, I'll be 82 in August. But I do get up at 5. We eat eggs, make sure we get organic juice. And then we're getting a thorough exam this year. I'm pushing the doctors, if you have one doctor, the best doctors I've got, they've gone private. So I think I'm gonna have to get a concierge doctor and fire the people I've had access to before. They're not doing all these tests. I asked them for those tests. They're not doing it.
Well, they're not trained for them either. But let me just ask you this. So you're having eggs, which is great. So why are you having the juice?
It's either organic orange juice.
Yeah.
No, he's asking why you're having juice.
Just
Hydration.
Evian quart bottle or the double quart bottle. I drink one of those in the morning, one after lunch. But it's just one juice in the morning.
Well, it tastes good and it's sugar. That's the answer, isn't it? Tastes good and it's sugar.
Yeah, he does. It's technically he doesn't know the answer.
We were my wife and I spent
I-
2 weeks in France last November, the first 2 weeks, and we noticed that everywhere we went in France, the food wasn't organic. It was just plain vanilla, healthy. Okay.
Okay.
We made sure that the worms were turning the soil where the apples came from, the apple trees and all that. Yeah, or the fruit trees and the juice that we drank juice
So
every morning.
Well, let me give you a longevity
fresh squeeze.
perspective. I'm not a fan of juice. Okay.
Okay.
And the reason for that
I
is,
understand sugar. You don't need any more.
well, it's sugar, but also you're taking out the fiber. You're not getting enough of the inulin that would be in the fiber. And the benefits are not real good. Okay. Because you're going to absorb it immediately. And again, it's going to elevate your insulin. And when you elevate your insulin too much, you're going to stop any kind of fat burning. And it causes you to crave food a few hours later for a lot of people. Maybe not in your case, but I'm not a fan of juice. I'd rather have whole fruit as from a Puritan perspective of longevity. That's the things that I've learned. So might want to keep that in mind with your nutrition strategy. Juice, if you have it every now and then, okay, but I wouldn't have that daily or anything like that. I think that it's been sold to people that's very healthy, and the evidence isn't showing that.
like my handful of almonds and peanuts that I used to eat before I took my Arman.
No, I concur with that. I think it's just liquidity source.
Yeah.
That's all.
I got. Hey, David, you got a question, David? You're on mute as well.
Oh yeah, real quick. Arman, I didn't know if you were going to cover supplements in this session. Yes or no?
Yeah, I got a lot of them now.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let you talk about that, of course, and maybe the ones you recommend. You can go overboard on them too, I'm sure.
Well, there's a lot to know about supplementation. There's a lot of wasted money, but there's also good things to know too. So let me talk on nutrition real quick as well. You can read what's on here, but the thing you want to understand about nutrition is managing your insulin. People don't understand how important that is, because high insulin is what creates most of your metabolic problems, also leads to diabetes or prediabetes, and it's just not good to have. And high insulin comes from having 3 or more meals. Having 3 meals and 2 snacks a day is just ridiculous, and it's not even necessary. But if you keep having carbohydrates at every meal and you keep jacking your insulin up, you don't burn any fat. So if you're somebody that's looking to lose body fat, you've got to manage it, because you only run on 2 energy systems at a time, or 1 energy system at a time. You got the energy system of fats, which last 4 to 6 hours and is very sustainable and very satiating. And then you have the energy system of quick sugars and carbs, which lasts about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So once those carbohydrates drop down and insulin stays elevated, then the cravings kick in, because you need more energy and your body's calling for more energy. So when you have protein and fats, that's a more stable energy source. So when you do have carbohydrates, it's better to have them actually in the evening, because excess carbohydrate, any kind of carbohydrate intake, will typically increase your serotonin levels, which converts to melatonin and makes you very sleepy. And so you get a good night's sleep as well if you're going to have carbohydrates. That's why when people have a heavy lunch with carbohydrates, they get drowsy and sleepy, and then they get brain fog just from that one simple technique, versus just having some protein and fats. Now, fats get a bad name, but fats are fine, because you need fats to digest protein. You need the bile salts to kick in to break down the protein to get the amino acids that you need. And when you eat protein and fats together, they produce glucose. Half the protein you ingest most of the time is converted to glucose through the amino acid system. That doesn't get discussed. So just one of many things that people don't really or may not be aware of. And so I just want to bring that up.
So it's not just what you eat, it's also when you
When
eat
you
it.
eat it, and you don't complicate it with more than, like you said, one energy source.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
That's
I
it.
think,
I've never heard that before.
yeah, because I think when I started talking to Armin, I think that's the kind of changes, because I used to eat a lot of nuts. I used to just go to the kitchen every 2 hours trying to find something. And like I said, Armin, like it's just kicking in, like, okay, I want feed me, feed me, feed me. So I kept eating. I mean, not bad food or processed food. I mean, I used to eat like fruits or nuts, or we made homemade granola bars, right? So I still kept eating every 2 hours or 1 hour. I kept eating. So you're saying that's probably an overkill in time.
Well, so let's just talk about that. So there's the benefits of nuts. Okay, nuts have good fats, they have fiber. That's the benefits of it. And you got a lot of minerals that come from nuts. But at the end of the day, you got to understand why you're eating them and the purpose of it. The one thing I will say is peanuts are the most worthless food source out there. They act like this is a high protein food source, and it's horrible. It's worse than soy protein. It doesn't even absorb. So, and they're also heavily polluted. You think your potatoes and stuff are polluted. You need to understand how they process peanuts. So I'm not a fan of peanuts, peanut butter, anything like that. And you can't just take a nut butter, because they use seed oils in the nut butters. But all nuts are good except for peanuts is a root anyway. It's not even a nut. So you can have nuts. It's not really a problem. Just got to keep that in mind.
No, understood.
I like that. I like that.
Understood. So I'm just kind of circling back, right? So we talked about the mindset. We talked about I guess nutrition. We talked about the timing of what you eat. We talked about, and I don't think we talked about supplements, right? I mean, I know that I take supplements, but I think it'll be good to kind of understand what's needed and what's not, would be my first question. And at what point would you consider taking supplements from a lifestyle perspective?
Okay, so there's fundamental supplements that everybody should be taking due to the soil not being as optimal as it was a long time ago. So the first most important step to me for anybody is to take a methylated vitamin and mineral supplement. Methylated means it's ready to absorb. So you want to have iodine in your supplement. You need to have, vitamin A, vitamin D, et cetera, in that. But one of the things that needed most importantly is folate, and that folate needs to be methylated. So if you look at a vitamin product on the market today, Most of it, about 90% of it's going to say folic acid. And folic acid is supposed to convert to folate, but it doesn't if you have a gene mutation. So what happens is you're taking these vitamins that have folate in them, and this stuff builds up in your system and it starts affecting neurotransmitters and cause anxiety and other things, other side effects, and people don't realize that. So you want methylated folate, not folic acid, for one simple takeaway. So if you get vitamins, make sure they're methylated. And the ones that I like are the Life Extension 2 per day, because they have a full spectrum, high quality vitamin. So I recommend that to anybody. Life Extension is a medical group that runs the organization. It's a nonprofit. They still make profit, don't get me wrong, but they're set up as a nonprofit. So it's lef.org that you can look for supplements there that are high quality, as an example. So other things that are important is, for inflammation factors would be fish oil. Most people don't understand what fish oil does. Okay. So fish oil basically makes the cell wall soft, supple, and sticky. The advantage of that is that because it keeps inflammation down and the cell walls are sticky like that, is when your hormones are secreted, they can attach to the cell and get down in there. So if you have too much sugar in your diet and it gets involved with the proteins, this causes a process called glycation, which makes the cell wall get stiff. And when it gets stiff like a piece of glass, the hormones can't attach very well and they fall off. They don't do their work. So this leads to wrinkling and faster aging, as an example. So fish oil is very important. It also will lower your cholesterol. It also helps with blood flow because it improves blood flow. So that's another supplement. And if you have joint issues, I'd recommend krill oil, which is they're like shrimp looking things, but they have a product called xanxin in them, which helps with joint ache and pain. It goes right to the joints. It's very unique. And I use that for anybody who has joint issues. So either fish oil or krill oil. Then you have vitamin D3, K2. Now, most people are just doing vitamin D3, but you got to understand you need the K2 as well for it to absorb, and also make sure, because vitamin D helps with calcification. If you don't get enough K2 in your diet, you're taking vitamin D3, you're going to end up pushing that calcium into your arteries, not to the bone. So you need the K2 to push it to the bone. And another thing about taking vitamin D3, it's a fat soluble vitamin. So you need to take that with fat. If you don't take it with fat, it will not absorb. I've had clients that take vitamin D3, K2, and their levels come back and they're low. And it's because they're just taking it in between a meal. It's like, you can't do that. Now, you can get vitamin D just through sunlight. 1 hour of sunlight will give you 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. That's great. But most people aren't getting that amount of sunlight. So that's really important, because vitamin D is involved with a lot of processes in your body. Another one would be it'd be magnesium. You need magnesium from all kinds of different processes. So, to keep it simple, magnesium glycinate is a good product. It helps relax you. It helps with cramping, helps with sleep. Or you can use magnesium 3 and 8. There's like 6 different types of magnesium. Okay, but just for some simplistic suggestion, that I would recommend that. And then let me think here. What else would be another good one? Oh, you guys got any questions on that? I'm kind of going overboard here.
Hey, Arman, like, one question I had was, like, I know that there are tons of vitamins and supplements in the marketplace, right? How would you, so one is to kind of decide what to take. The other one is the dosage. It ranges all the way from 100 mg to 1500 mg and whatever, right? So how do you decide between the dosage of it?
Well, dosages, you're going to have to research them unless you got somebody you're working with. So, like, for example, vitamin D3, the standard, what I have clients work with and the medical community agree on, is 5,000 units per day. Now, if your levels are low, you can double that up for a week or 10 days, and it'll bring it right back up, 10,000 units a day for that time period, as an example.
Right.
Dosages are just gonna, like with the multivitamin, they're gonna be preset, but you gotta make sure there's enough dosage. Like a men's 1 a day is worthless. You're gonna have to take like 10 of those things, and they're made with a tablet, and tablets have binders in them. Okay, so I don't like tablets very often. I mean, I always check to see what the binders are. So when you have a tablet, it may not dissolve, and it actually just go right through your whole intestinal system. So I'm a bigger fan of capsules or powders when it comes to supplementation. Dosages are going to vary, but most of them are already on the product, and it's going to tell you how many to, like take 2 or whatever for the dosage that's been suggested based on what you need, why you need to take that supplement. So you're taking a supplement because there's a reason for it. And the thing is with supplementation, we're looking to just bring up the level, not replace food, but bring up the supplement level to get it in a more ideal situation. And again, that's why you need lab work, is to see where the deficiencies are.
That's kind of what I was getting at. So you're saying that that's one of the reasons you need to do a full comprehensive lab test so that you understand how your body reacts to each of the supplements as well, correct?
You can check your folate level, you can check your B12 level, and there's a lot of them in there that can do for you with any kind of lab work. So that's the nice thing. Just from the B12 perspective, a lot of people are dealing with that. People don't realize B12 just comes from meat. So if you're getting a good amount of meat, you're probably getting a good amount of B12. But if you don't get enough folate, you don't get to utilize your B12 as well. And that's why your red blood cell count could be compromised because you're not getting enough of the right amount. So that would show up in your lab work as well. That's an example.
Don, you got a question?
I had a question on absorption. So I've done triathlons and Ironman events in the past, and it was this will be a graphic for your viewers today. But if I got off my bike and I went into the porta potty, it was amazing to me that there was like this giant 50-pound white pill, which is basically all the GNC supplements that people were consuming before the race, and they just peed it right through themselves. Can you talk a little bit more about absorption and how important it is?
Well, that's why I'm a bigger fan of anything being methylated and also being in a powder or a capsule, because they're going to absorb pretty rapidly. And you got to understand some of these supplements need to be taken with food. For example, people that take a multivitamin on an empty stomach, it's a huge mistake. Okay, it's not gonna do anything for you. You need the food to get with the vitamins and the minerals to get it absorbed into your system. So you need to understand when you take vitamins, there's certain key things you have to do. If you're going to take pregnenolone or DHEA, which can help with hormones, it's an over-the-counter supplement. You need to take that on an empty stomach. Otherwise, it's not going to absorb properly. As another example. Now, one thing I also want to say is when it comes to reading your supplement bottles, one of the things that people don't realize is magnesium stearate. The magnesium stearate, if you're not aware of it, that's just a powder to make the machines work better to make the tablets and the capsules. So what you want to look for is not magnesium stearate, but vegetable stearate, because that will dissolve in through your electrolyte water system. It just flushes out. Magnesium stearate will build up in your system. So this is how you can start to differentiate quality supplements versus cheap, tell you what you want to hear supplements.
Well said.
Yep.
Oh, Arman, question regarding almost a daily advertisement for this powdered vegetable and fruit capsules. I think something Bounty of Nature or Juice Plus.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about that?
I'm not a big fan of them. I mean, you can get greens and things like that in a lot of different ways. But like I'm a fan of chlorella and spirulina, which are basically what do you call it? Not really a bacteria, but with what you get with chlorella and spirulina, it helps oxygenate the blood and cleanse the blood. And that's what you're going to get in these greens products. Okay, it's an algae is what it is. Okay, those are good for you, but a lot of times they put too much stuff into it and it gets diluted. So that's what you have to kind of understand. And the question is, do you need that? Do you know why you need it? Okay, and what the purpose of it is. And that's what you have to dig deeper on, because they're going to tell you everything you want to hear when they're putting the product out there. And I have to sort through all these different supplement companies all the time because there's a lot of them. And so I'm a test dummy for most of this stuff. And I can basically tell you like, hey, this sucked, or I didn't notice anything with this. And then I get my lab work done, and I can notice things. So, but that's why lab work is also helpful, because you can see how the trends are improving if you're doing things the right way. If not, then you got to relook at, okay, what direction I need to go to get this at a better level. And you got to feel better. That's the other side effect. You're going to know right away. You start having better energy. You're more alert. You're sleeping better. Things like that.
One question on supplements, just to get us back to supplements.
Yeah.
I've got 3 offices I go back and forth all during the week. And one of them has a really nice smoothie bar. So either in the morning or afternoon, or if I leave pickleball after a couple of hours, I'll grab one just as a for the energy. And I'll have to put pea powder for protein.
Mhm. Well, pea powder.
Else should we should or should not be putting into our smoothies?
I'm not a smoothie guy either. I've done a lot of smoothies. Unfortunately, most of them are just jacked with sugar and too many carbohydrates. Now, if you're doing an athletic event and you've been playing, then you're having some carbohydrates after that's fine. You're going to replenish the muscles in the liver. That's what carbohydrates and sugars are supposed to do, replenish the muscles in the liver. So just keep in mind, if your muscles and liver are already full of glucose, carbohydrates and sugars, all you're going to do is store the extra into the fat cell, because that's what insulin does. Insulin comes up and says, hey, what we're going to do this glucose. Well, the muscles and liver are full. Let's shift this to the fat cell. So when it comes to adding protein, I'm all for it. Pea protein is fine. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's just because the amino acid profile is not as complete. So, the DNA RNA structure of a plant versus a meat is totally different. Okay. So you got to make sure you're getting all the 9 essential amino acids. So I'm a big fan of whey protein or milk and egg protein, things like that, because they have the amino acid profile that's very complete, will absorb very well, and gets the job done. But you got to sort through those products because some of them are cheaper, or they're what's called amino acid loaded with lower grade plant amino acids put in there to show 50 grams of protein when it's actually probably 20 at best. And just to understand that protein, you don't absorb 100% of it because some of it's converted to glucose.
And on milk, if you touch on milk, pasteurized milk or unpasteurized milk, there's some farms around this are pretty close where you can get milk
Unpasteurized.
directly from the farm and it's not been pasteurized, but it's good.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good quality product. Just to understand with milk, a lot of people think you're going to absorb the calcium from milk, and if you do some research on that, it's not as high as you would think, not even close. Okay, so when you're looking for milk, you're going to get casein protein. That's a slower burning protein, and so it stays in your system a little longer. That's the benefit of it.
Okay.
But also understand if milk coming from a farm, there's going to be if you're older, like at my age, I have to watch my what do you call it? The estrogen level, because cows will give you estrogen. Okay, and that's what then. So when you get excess estrogen, that can create problems with your testosterone levels because it binds with testosterone and cause through a process called aromatase. It can affect your free testosterone or your total testosterone. So dairy has some issues with it. So as you get older, I don't do much dairy. Okay, from my perspective, and based on what I've learned. Doesn't mean you can't have it, but like I'll have cheese, I'll have some sour cream and things like that, but I just don't have a dairy every single day for me because I did an experiment. I had cottage cheese for 6 months, had a half a cup, my estrogen tripled. It was all natural cottage cheese. So I had to fix that problem, but I did the tests and that's what happened as an example.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mm.
Well, I mean, just kind of looking at the time. So I know we talked about a lot of stuff. So before we kind of close out, I think the one thing that we haven't talked about, Arman, is staying active, right? We talked about nutrition, we talked about food, we talked about, tests, but we haven't talked about, having an active lifestyle, right? So I think that'll be one thing that'll be good for us to kind of see, like, how should we think about, active lifestyle and things that we should do to make sure that we're kind of healthy, not just from food and what we eat, but also in what we do.
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, and it's really important because what people need to understand is you need to maintain your muscle tissue, and the only way to do that is through resistance exercise. You're not going to get that through cardio work. You get very minimal resistance from cardio work, and you recover very quickly from cardio work. So you need some resistance exercise, which is a mild form of stress, which is good for your body. But what it does, it helps you preserve your muscle tissue. And so what it also does help preserve your joints and ligaments so you have better mobility. Okay. And if people think they can do cardio and they're going to live for a long period of time, well, that one's questionable. Okay. It will give you some blood flow circulatory wise, but the reason you need to maintain muscle tissue, because if you get in a situation where you get hospitalized for a week or two and you're bedridden, you're going to lose a tremendous amount of muscle.
Mhm.
I had an appendectomy probably 15 years ago and it went bad. And I was in the hospital for 6 days. And because of the way it happened, I couldn't eat food. So I had to be on, whatever fluids I could take in because it had to pump my stomach because I kept throwing everything up. I lost 20 pounds of muscle. I mean, I was so lean that I was getting bruises from the injections. That's how lean I was. So the question is, if you lose 20 pounds of muscle, how are you going to put that back on? Okay, because that's going to affect your mobility, it's going to affect your recovery, it's going to affect your energy. Muscle is what gives you energy, and muscle helps preserve your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. And so when you have a lot of mitochondria, you got good energy. Okay, but if your liver gets taxed with too much sugar and carbohydrates and it starts affecting your mitochondria, which gives you a high ALT reading, then you're not going to have good energy, and that's going to affect you. So doing resistance exercise helps improve the mitochondria, helps to keep the muscle tissue up, helps keep your joints where they need to be. And it doesn't have to be off the wall kind of training. 30 minutes, 3 times a week, maybe 40 minutes, depending on what your goals are, will help keep you there. And it doesn't need to be super heavy. You just got to exercise so you take the muscle to muscular failure, and you're going to get a great response. You don't get super over sore or anything like that. But that's where people need to really understand the importance of muscle, because what ends up taking us out as we age, you keep losing muscle whether you like it or not. Okay, it's called anabolic resistance. That's what happens to the body. So you want to do things to get on the offensive to reduce anabolic resistance. And if you don't, what it leads to is sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is what's called muscle wasting. And as you keep losing muscle, then eventually it starts to eat up your organs. And then that takes you out from that point forward. So you can look that up yourself and kind of get your own viewpoint on it. But that's what I've learned.
Can you touch on wellness with corporations, Arman?
Yeah, I mean, I do that now. So what I do for companies is I do a seminar for them and educate them on different areas that the employees are really interested in, whether it's GLP-1s or whether it's exercise or whether it's nutrition. Companies, they need to get on the offense with it because, if you go to a lot of companies, they got vending machines and they're serving processed food and, fast food, and it doesn't make for a good work environment with energy. Because people are just, they don't feel good after they get done eating that stuff. They're in denial most of the time. And so if you're eating a lot of sugars and carbs, then you're going to lean on caffeine. And all this stuff just leads to a circular issue. So companies need to get in a position where they can help educate the employees on making better choices, but then take the things out of the workplace that aren't conducive. Okay, have water is going to be good. Most companies have water. But let's, if you're going to have soda, then let's start with diet soda, but that's not good either. But we'll start with that because that's a better step. Because what people don't realize with diet soda, it makes you hungry. Because
Yes,
even though there's no
that's
sugar in it, it causes the brain, because of the sweetness, the brain goes, "Ooh, I need some more food," and you will eat more food because of the reaction. So there's a lot of things that companies need to do, but they need to keep educating the employees on how to make better choices or provide, different food. I mean, there's a company called Factor 75, which they'll make meals and send it to the company, and they're freshly made and they keep them in the refrigerator, and you just heat them up in a microwave and they're well done. And so that's another solution that companies could use as an example. But it's education. And then like letting people know, hey, if you want to take control of your life and take control of your health, you want to take back control, here's some things you can do. And some of them are going to start moving that direction. And then once people see how they look and how they respond with the energy and how they feel, they're going to say, hey, what are you doing? That's how it normally works. You need a few people to get the ball rolling and then to lead. But then once that happens, then people start following that because they're getting stuff done and they're enjoying life. They're not all fatigued. So I'm all for, and the companies are starting to do that, especially self-insured, because they can manage their costs better than a fully insured. You fully insured would be like Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and United Healthcare and that kind of thing. I know that's kind of a long-winded answer.
Do you feel that if you're working for company A and they're eating pizza and donuts and have Cokes in the fridge and vending machines, or you're competing against company B, who is a healthy wellness company, do you believe it's a competitive advantage to have an employee population that's healthy?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it
Yeah,
shows.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Here to be clear.
they're more productive. there's people can say what they want to say that don't agree with those kind of things, but they are more productive and they're not focused on food all day and when to snack. They're focused on getting their job done and getting it done efficiently. And maybe they can go home early because they got everything done. You know, there's
Right.
a lot of good things can come from that. And also people need to understand sleep. People abuse sleep and it's really a shame because it's so important for your body.
So I think we're about at time. So Armin, so I think just to sum up, right? I know we talked about the pillars. I know we talked about the nutrition, you know, the exercising and what would you say would be the minimum steps like that we should all consider, you know, before we get into the more regimented, you know, ways of doing things, but like what's the minimum things that we need to do to make sure that we're thinking about, you know, well-being and longevity?
Okay, from a simplistic point, get away from ultra processed food. If it comes in a bag, a box, or has a barcode, probably not good for you. Probably has folic acid. Anything that's enriched or fortified has folic acid. You're not getting any benefit from that. And that's another reason why your body craves nutrients because you're not getting the nutrients that the body needs. So that's why you're constantly hungry as well. So get rid of those products, fast food, ultra processed food, and seed oils. Seed oils and everything. And you can do your own homework on that. I'm not touching seed oils. I'm done. So next would be, okay, let's get some exercise. Start simple. Maybe it's just a brisk walk, 20 minutes. Okay, let's start with that. Then as you get more conditioned, start making it a little more intense. Then start thinking about how you want to do some resistance training. Maybe it's just push-ups and body weight squats and things to start with, but start moving in that direction. Stay hydrated. Drink water. Every time you're thirsty, drink some water. Take a multivitamin. Take some fish oil. Take some vitamin D3 because it's important. D3K2, not just D3, but D3K2. Get sleep. Work on your sleep. Sleep is when all the things happen. Your hormones are secreting when you sleep, and that's when they do all the repair work and help. And because you're sleeping, you're not eating, you're burning fat when you sleep. But if you keep short-circuiting your sleep, you're short-circuiting your life over a period of time, and it will affect you because you're not going to have good energy. You're not going to wake up well. There's a lot of issues, so you need to focus on that. And I mean, there's a lot of the obvious, but then on top of this, check your performance. Okay, so there's different ways to check your performance. You can have the lab work done and then start working off of that, or you can use other tools now, the wearables. I have a Whoop strap, I got a Bleo, and I got an Aura ring. So I'm tracking all these things that are going on in my body to see how I'm dealing with stress, how I'm dealing with how my sleep is going, if I'm getting deep sleep, REM sleep, which is really important. I mean, so use things that can help you measure progress. Obviously, if you're feeling good, you're making progress, but then you want to see as you get better conditioning, you know, things get a little bit more interesting when you get in really good condition to see what you're really doing. I don't know. Hopefully that's not too much there.
No. I mean, it's good. I
No,
think no.
You brought up a key point for me, which is sleep. Our oldest boy is a cardiologist, and he's pushing us to make sure we get 8 hours sleep.
Yeah.
You're ready. He said, that's the key. I said, that's
it.
You got to be a sleep athlete. You know, prepare, don't watch TV, don't read a book, just calm down. And then
Get rid of the blue light.
early, just make sure you're calm. And if you can, take your vitamins and your pills, whatever you got, and before you sleep, have a little bite or something, and then let the medications go into you and the vitamins, stuff, everything go into you as you're resting. The body just jumps all over you.
So here's a quick tip on sleep. Okay, you're going to get the best result if you give yourself 3 hours after your last meal before you go to bed. No food, 3 hours before you go to bed.
Yeah.
The reason for that, if you want to track it, look at your resting heart rate. Okay, no food for 3 hours. It'll drop down. Now go ahead and have a meal an hour before and go to bed. You're going to see your resting heart rate is going to be at 5 points minimum. I've already done the research. I've already done all the research on this. So if you want to improve your heart rate and your blood pressure, stop having a late night meal or something in the evening. You want to give yourself 3 hours, and the alcohol also is another factor. So,
Hey, Arman, one more last question.
That's a great guide right there. Yeah, we no meal after about 4 or 5 o'clock. 6.
yeah.
Close the kitchen. Yeah.
So one more last question. So I know that we talked about the blood test and baselining your results. Is there a list of those things and what people should what we should think about in terms of what you mean by baseline? Like what types of tests we're
Well,
looking at?
yeah, there's a lot of different lists you can use. So it just depends on where you want to start. Okay, you can start with a simple baseline from your doctor, but if you want to start expanding it, then I mean, yeah, I don't have one here that I can give you, but there's a lot of different ways you can measure things, and so I have different types of tests depending on where the person's at. So
yeah, we can probably send that as a after meeting thank you letter with to all the members, right? So we can send it over. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean, this has been extremely helpful. I mean, I think even after I talked to you, I think today it did give me a lot more things to think about in terms of from a mindset perspective and a timing perspective, what I shouldn't be doing. I know what I need to do, what I need to concentrate on, what I shouldn't be doing, right? So very, very good information. And Arman, as always, thank you for your time and walking us through the myths of healthcare.
No problem.
Thank you.
There's quite a bit to unpack here, so it's just a matter of what direction you want to go, and then we can schedule a call if you got questions and stuff, and I can give you some input. So
Yep.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I value everything you shared with us today.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
oh,
Any
pleasure being here
any
too.
Yep. Any questions? Any other comments, questions, observations?
I have one last question as probably the youngest person in this room. When should I start thinking about this stuff? Should it be now or 10 years down the road?
That was the first question.
So if it were me with what I know today, I'd get on it right now because you can slow down the aging process substantially. And you'd be surprised how much of a difference it makes. You'll just have constant energy. You're going to feel good. So you're going to be in total control. People don't have
Don't wait
control.
till you're 82. Don't wait.
I won't wait till
Well,
I'm
you're
82.
gonna get to 82 at some point. So how the question is, okay, how am I going to stack up at 82? I mean, I don't know what's going to be like right now. I'm
You're
60.
going to be healthy in 82. That's what you should count for.
You gotta. It just depends on what's important to you. But if you want to maximize your opportunities, I would say as healthy as possible because it's so much cheaper.
I'm cheap, very cheap. But I'm starting a new trainer, my first trainer, and I said, how many of your clients are in their 80s or 90s? You got to get me to 95. Okay. My aunt in Fort Worth turned 105 last June 13th. Wow. She eats bacon every morning, starts her eggs, vegetable tacos.
Oh, that's the wrong stuff to be eating. Just ask the experts.
Bacon. She starts everything with bacon. You got any opinion on bacon? I mean, I love bacon. Baconless tomato, whatever.
Well, we can get into that whole topic, but yeah, you'd be surprised what food you can eat. It's ridiculous what's happening with certain foods. I mean, I just don't get it. So, anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll let you guys
get
back at it, and pleasure being here, and thanks for attending.
Yeah.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you very much.
We'll see.
Bye-bye.